welcome everyone to this week in Svelte,
Hello, everyone.
number 69. Nice. I'm Paulo. I will be your host for today, and today Karim will join us. I always did. Okay, Karim. I'm always confused where my webcam is pointing. Karim will join us today, also because he will show some very cool things about Node, which is much more experienced than me. So let's jump right into it because we have a lot to talk about today. So let's jump right into the changelog. As usual, a lot of releases because it's about 5. It's right, like it's getting closer. I start noticing some PR for docs. So this means that we are getting closer and closer. So let's see if there's something worth noting. I think one thing is interesting is now effect.root is completely ignored on the server. This fixed a slight inconsistency before, because basically if you were getting back the cleanup function from the root, it was executed, but not the effect, only the instantiation, but now it's completely ignored. So this is a fix for that thing, but also like a good thing. So effect root is completely ignored on the server, and it's something worth knowing. Better Svelte element SSR output, reorder reactive statement during migration. This is an interesting bit because, like, obviously, like they are also working on the migration script so that you can also start using runes immediately. You can use Svelte 5 very, very easily. Like, for example, we updated the Svelte lab code base to use Svelte 5, and it was instant, basically. Like, just update to Svelte 5, everything worked. So it's pretty cool. But if you want to use runes, you need the migration script, which they're also working on. Correct start of else if and else. Yeah, this is another important bit. Like when you have props, I think when you have props, basically before it was you can read the prop. Oh no, I think if you export state from a component, that's it. So and we can actually show you. So let's do a bit of Svelte 5 review. Basically, if you export state from a component, which is basically these, like you can do let I don't know, count is equal to $sign state. You can actually export this. So you can do export count and access it from outside the word. So let's say 0, and let's say that I do count like this. And if I import this component, component to the Svelte, and I render it, so let's say like this. Let's say that I render the count like this. I'm getting the count here. If I bind these to, so let count instance, and I do bind these, you should be able to read the value of the exported state from this. So count instance. So if I do, I don't know, console log count instance dot count, you should be able to read this value. So if we open the console and I click, yeah, it's 0. So I'm reading the value. And before it was not possible to write to it, but now you can actually write to it, which is interesting to say the least. I don't know if I can do ++. Let me see. Yeah, I can actually do it. I don't know why you should do this. Probably you shouldn't, but it's nice to know that you can do it. And
So does that mean that we don't have to box the value anymore? Because I think previously we had to like wrap the value in, an object,
I think
and export
basically
that
like
or
the
setters.
export from a component is actually like it's like the inverse of a prop. So it's Svelte is exposing these as a getter and a setter. So that's why you can just update it like this. But that's only if you have the count instance, so the component instance. I don't know if you should do this. Like, it doesn't seem very like it probably leads to more like to spaghetti code probably, but
So it doesn't work inside regular JavaScript files.
yeah, exactly. Because I
Oh,
think
okay.
like if you see the compiled code, yeah, this basically gets converted to a getter and a setter, just like in classes, for example. So that's why you can do this, but it's not possible to do it in regular JavaScript files. So let's go ahead and the next thing. Let's say resolve legacy component props equality for mutation. This is all. Oh, there are some breaking changes, very minor one. Like for example, the play transition now on mount transition are played by default. I think before it was not like. Yeah, HMR. Let me see the we disable intro transition when mounting components. The reason we do is to avoid flashes when hydrating, but that only really applies to hydrating. So now when you mount a component, the transition plays automatically. So before it was disabled on mount, and um, it was disabled on mount, and then on hydrate was actually played, and now instead it plays automatically on mount. Some deep derived signal. This is very like I think especially the derived part of the signal reactivity. It's so complex. Like I'm trying to contribute to Svelte a bit, and that part is very like they're doing a super good job at keeping everything in place because it's very complex. Like it really shows why we have this performance gain because they are thinking of so many things. Um, this is also very interesting. We now have single pass hydration. So for those that are unaware, like hydration is that phase where basically when you server side render a Svelte application, and then like so you have the HTML. When it arrives on the client, Svelte needs to attach every event listener and stuff like that to make it actually work, and that's called hydration basically. And Svelte hydration it was already pretty fast because like it's basically the main like one of the main objective of Svelte hydration was like we want an hydration that's so fast that is not important if we have hydration. And they actually made it better because before it was doing two passes, like it was reading all the nodes, collecting the nodes and stuff like that, and then hydrate everything. And now they were able to do it in a single pass, which is much better. There is another breaking change because if you're using the Svelte config before, that was legacy.component API to set like runes to false, I guess, for external libraries. And now it's compatibility component API, which is a bit different. Destroy effect, handle nested global selector is also interesting. So now you can even nest global selector. Now this is also like it's fun because like obviously we have Svelte URL search params, which is the reactive one, and Svelte URL, which is the reactive version of the URL. And obviously Svelte URL is also using Svelte URL search params under the hood because it's a URL has URL search params, and I guess before it was not reflecting. So if you change something in the URL search params, it was not reflecting on the URL, and now it does, which is interesting. Um, yeah, some various bug fixes. This is also there was a problem with hydration, I guess, here, where basically you like if you destroyed a component and that component was registering a listener on Windows, it was not removing that listener. So that's interesting. This is also something that is worth knowing. So there was a bug that was an issue that was open about the fact that SvelteKit is not hydrating the HTML block, and this is like a throwback to what hydration means. Basically, the server renders something in the HTML block, and the client in Svelte 4 was like replacing that block with what the client says it was. But this is a very expensive operation because like usually in the HTML tag you're just throwing something for the like from the CMS, for example, or a markdown file, and this is a very huge blob of HTML and stuff like that, and destroy all that it was and rebuild it just like for the rare case where you really want something like this. It's like it was very costly, and so now basically, and I'll show you. Let's say that you have something like this, where you have like you import browser, and so the value of the HTML changes from browser to server. As you can see, if I refresh the page, first thing first, like it does not change from server to browser, and you also get a warning to say that the value of the HTML block in this file is changed, and the client value will be ignored in name of the server value. So that's something that you want to know. Obviously, this will only happen in dev mode. So if when you build your application, this warning will not be there. But that's interesting to know because, yeah. I don't really think there is. And by the way, if you really, really need this, there is also a way to get it because you can do something like this. So you can do const, actually let HTML is equal to server, actually $state server, and then you can do $effect, and inside the effect you can say HTML equal browser. So if you really need it, you can do something like this, and this will work. It's a bit more code, but it works. So if I refresh, you can see that the render part was server, and then it changed to browser. So if you really, really need it, you can do it, but this like it's more performant to do it in the other way. Let's go ahead. I think we are done. Let's see if SvelteKit has anything. Nothing. Some update by renovate. Some types that have been unintentionally public are now private. I think this was already done on the Svelte code base. Oh, that's also interesting. Dynamically extract list of Svelte exports from peer dependency so that now exports work automatically. I wonder what this means. Oh, okay. So instead of like it's pulling the list of all the exports from the package.json of Svelte, so that instead of releasing a new version of Vite plugin every time the exports change, the Vite plugin will automatically update. Very cool. Let me see. Yeah, it's also very interesting. Default to build config so that Svelte check does not trigger dev only plugins. Interesting, because Svelte check, as you may know, like you're probably using it on CI and stuff like that to check that your Svelte application is on check. And I guess before it was using the dev the dev build config, and this means that if there was a Vite plugin that was messing around, it was triggering something that was not needed. Font files, yeah, that's it. That's it for the changelog. So I will remove my screen now because it's now all Karim stage, because Karim actually implemented a lot of changes in the node adapter, right, for SvelteKit. And
Yeah, right. So, wait, is my screen already visible? No, it's
no,
not.
I can
Okay,
move
wait,
it.
hold on. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so just I want to talk about a few features that we added in adaptive Node version 5, which was a breaking change, or there's one breaking change. There are approximately, I think, 2 or 3 features that we added. One of them is breaking, and they all somehow tie together. One is a feature that I want to demo today, but first let's take a look at all of these features. So if you go to the SvelteKit documentation, there is here, if you go to graceful shutdown, this is probably, this is a breaking change, and it's probably the biggest change that was added, I think 2 or 3 months ago. And until version 4, it doesn't really matter for serverless applications, because usually if you deploy to serverless platforms, then the platform handles this for your application. But if you deploy to usually EVPS, so usually to, let's say, DigitalOcean or EVPS from Hetzner or some kind of other Linux machine, and you package your application as a Docker container, then what happens is that you are not really able to close the application. You could only kill the SvelteKit app, but you could not really gracefully shut it down. And usually what you want is that you give a signal to your application. It usually comes from Docker or a systemd, or if you're running in a terminal, when you press Control and C. This would previously kill your SvelteKit app, but now adapter node is able to intercept these signals, and it does 3 things. It finishes all requests that have been made. So the issue was that in version 4, if you stop the application, then all of your users that are currently using your SvelteKit app will see errors, because the requests that have been made and there was no response yet, there will never be a response. The connection is just cut. Your database connection is not correctly closed. It now we call server.close, which closes the server, the HTTP server, but only the connections that are not active anymore. And all other requests that are still processing, they will continue to finish. The users will get a response, and then once the connection becomes idle, they will be closed immediately until there are no active connections anymore, and all new requests are rejected. And the last thing that happens is, just in case you have, I don't know, maybe your app is just hanging around, and there's maybe a connection that's usually a keep alive connection, signaled by a header. This connection used to just stay open in Node.js before version 18. And in Node.js 18, 19, there's a new method that closes all connections. It was not possible before. So before Node.js 18, you had to manually track all connections and then look when they become inactive and then close them. So this is the main feature. So this also means that if you have a Node.js application, a SvelteKit application using adapter nodes, you used to have no way of knowing when all the requests have finished. And that's usually when you want to close your database connection, when you want to do any kind of cleanup work. And there's a new hook for that. We explore other ways of implementing this, but it's a bit difficult to do this with the way adapters currently work. So previously, some people used to just listen for, let's make this a bit bigger, for the, where is it? Hold on. Let's see it. Let's go to Grace Research down here. So what people used to do is they listen for the process on exit events. And this is not really recommended because it only runs a synchronous operation. So if you're logging to the console inside a process on exit handler, or if you are closing a database connection, there's no guarantee that this will actually finish before your circuit up shuts down. And now you have a dedicated hook that you can use, and there is a reason parameter that you can use to, usually you probably don't need it, but you can just check it and see what was the reason, what was the signal that closed your application. And the last one is very interesting. It's the one that we're going to that I'm going to demo in a few seconds. Yeah, here. So this is a feature I want to talk about a bit more, socket activation. So again, this is not really relevant if you're deploying to serverless platforms, but let's say you have an application, you deploy to your server, and that application is not really used. It's not a high traffic website. It's not a high traffic app. Maybe it's a dashboard application used during work hours by a company. Socket activation essentially allows you to start your application when it is used and shut it down when it becomes idle. And the way this works is, let's actually just start with a demo before, so it's easier to see how it works and what it does. So I have a socket application here, just an empty socket application. I added a hooks.server.js file. I use this new event. You might see a red squiggly line here if you use TypeScript. I actually do, but yeah, because it's not possible in Node.js to type custom events emitted by process. We'll listen here for the event and then just relog it. We just log it to be notified when the app has shut down. And yeah, one thing you need to know is that if you run this, it only works if you run this with the node build command. It doesn't, hold on. It doesn't work in development because it's purely adapter feature, and adapters only run in production. So if you run this, you can see it's listening. If we close it, we see the signal getting locked. And for the sake of this demo, let's just pretend that we're deploying to a server. I work on Linux, so this is a laptop running Linux. And everything I'm going to do right now, it works exactly the same way as when you would be using a VPS or a Linux machine. I don't know, maybe Raspberry Pi. But just for the sake of this demo, we're going to do this on my laptop because it's easier. So we have the Svelte application, and if you want to deploy to your server, usually there are multiple ways, but usually what you would want to do is create a systemd service here. So you would usually have to just create a file inside your configuration directory. In Linux, it's usually the etc systemd system directory. And just create a myapp.service file. Myapp is the name of your app. It can be anything. And service is important. It's a service extension. It always has to be the service extension. Here's the file here. You can see, by the way, this is all in the documentation. So let's go back. We have a file, a service file. We just have the command here to start our app. And we add a few environment variables, node env production, and just to show you that it was working, let's go in here. Restart the application. So the systemctl start my app. That's it. Should run. So this should be So it's running. We can go to, hold on. We can go to Firefox, load the page, and it's of course not running. Okay, let me check. It is running. Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Yes. Stop. Hold on. Let's restart it. Okay, now it should work. Yes, okay, great. Okay, so our app is running. It's just a demo Svelte application using Adapter Node version 5. And that's how you would usually deploy your app. The app is located in a directory. You can put it anywhere on Linux, at least on Ubuntu Linux, but usually this is preferred directory user local bin. I have here my app, which is the Svelte application, and nodes. And this app is just continuously running. So it's running, and we can check the status again, so just you can see what's actually doing. It's active. It consumes memory, and it is listening. We can see on port 3000. It's an important thing. So in order to take advantage of socket activation, you have to create another file, a second file. And it looks like this. You create a second file named myapp.socket instead of service. You put it in the same directory, and here we can specify the port number. And this is not really important. This just tells Linux to start the socket when the server starts. But what this does is that usually when you start your Svelte application, you start it, it listens on a socket, it opens the socket on port, whatever port you choose, and then it's listening on that socket. But what you can also do is, and what some apps already do on Linux, is tell the operating system to listen on a port for you on behalf of your app. And when this socket becomes active, it starts your app. So we're just going to stop our app now, and instead start the socket. Hold on, should be. Yeah, it stopped, and now we can just start the socket instead. We can verify that it's running by checking the status. Should be myapp.socket. We can see we have a socket that's listening on port 5555. It only occupies almost no memory, so this is very efficient. And the interesting part is now, if we check the logs of our Svelte application, and remember, it's not running currently, so you can see that our app it's not running, it's stopped. Let's just actually move this here. We changed the port, so on port 3000, nothing is happening. If we go to port 5500, which is the socket over here, we can see that our app starts and it's listening on file descriptor 3 instead of a port, because the operating system will pass the socket that it's always controlling to your Svelte application. In order for this to work, we need Node.js. It doesn't work in Dino. Bun is working on support for this, but it works in most programming languages, most web servers. You need to be able to listen on a file descriptor instead of a port. And now the app is running. And see, if we go, I'm not sure if I actually set the timeout. Let's check. If we go to the socket file and to our to our myapp.service file, we can specify a new environment variable, which is specific to adapter nodes. So hold on. It is idle timeout. By default, it's set to 30, I think. But let's just turn this down maybe to 10 seconds, or wait 30 seconds. Let's see.
Idle, right? I think you misspelled idle.
Oh, did I? Let's check. So, right, thank you. Yeah, it's set to 30 seconds by default. So we could wait 30 seconds or we reload the app. I think I just wait 30 seconds. But the interesting thing is, while it is running, while it is receiving requests, when you navigate, we create requests, the app continues to run. And after it doesn't receive requests anymore for a specific number of seconds, which we set it to 30 seconds, then Svelte will automatically shut the app down. Let's maybe just reload the application so it is faster to see. What should we do? Daemon, let's start the daemon because I changed the file, the configuration file, and let's just stop maybe our app. You can see this here in the console in a second. Service. So we stop our app. And it's not running again. We can also go to the console, and you can see that the first request, it has a higher latency here, 105 milliseconds. But if we reload this, it should be way lower. Yeah, 2 milliseconds. So let's properly refresh it. Yes, because it obviously takes some time to start the application, but it's barely visible. It depends on what you do on startup. If you connect it to your database, if you, whatever you do. Now, if the app is idle for, it should be 10 seconds. We can see here in the console, it should shut down, I hope. Just a few seconds. Come on. Maybe. Hold on. Or maybe it's still 30 seconds, I think. So okay, let's just continue with the explanation. You will see
Are
in a
you
few
sure?
seconds.
I don't know. I really don't know anything about this.
Oh, here it is. No, it's not.
Okay.
It is set to 30 seconds by default, but I think it did refresh to 10 seconds. So we can actually take a look at the code. Just give you an idea. Svelte kit, GitHub. What gets up here? Right. If we go to packages, adapter node, sources. Yeah, there's an important thing is that if you create your own custom server, so there's a custom server feature in adapter node, then this doesn't really work because there is a custom server by default in SvelteKit, and that is where this is implemented. So you can see here is the code. We check if the operating system passes a file descriptor to the application. If yes, then we listen on file descriptor 3 instead of the ports. That's pretty much it. The difficult part is shutting down the application, like being able to know when the application becomes idle. And this is where Node.js 18 is important because it wasn't really possible before that. Yeah, it's still running. Okay. Let's check the files again. idle timeout is set to 10 seconds. We can go in here and say sudo systemctl cut my app to service. That should tell us what it is using. Oh yeah, it is still using my misspelled.
Oh wow.
Okay. Okay, let's stop the service and let's run daemon reloads, and I think that's it. So let's go back in here. Let's watch the logs. Here it's been stopped, and if we go back to the application, we make a request. It is listening in file descriptor 3 again. And if we wait 10 seconds now, if we don't do anything here, if we continue to make requests, then it's not idle. But if we wait 10 seconds now, it should shut down. And this is also, by the way, if you use a server, we deploy to VPS, you usually log in to your server over using SSH. And in Ubuntu, the SSH service also takes advantage of socket activation. So it's until you actually log in to the server, the SSH service is actually not running. It's just a way for Linux to save resources. You can deploy multiple applications to your server without having to continuously use resources. I'm not sure. Let me check if this is still. This always happens on stream. I tested it multiple times before the stream. But yeah, it's very easy. Where is it called? My app to service. Oh, system here. It is still using it. I'm not sure why. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's.
Did we save? Maybe we did.
Yeah, did I save? Let's try. Okay. By default, let's check. Idle timeout is set to. Oh, right. It's not even right. It's not set to anything by default. So it's just continuously running. I just need to. Let's just stop the app again. Okay. Let's maybe also stop the socket just to be safe. Okay, and now let's reload the daemon. That should work. And let's check the. Yes, okay, now it's set. And if we, I hope, if we service, our app is dead. It's not running. It's not running at all. And we just start our socket. And if we now go over again, our app is not running. As you can see, it's stopped. We make a request. It's not logging. Was it? Okay, yeah, it was cached. Okay. It's listening again on file descriptor 3. It will continue to listen on file descriptor 3 as long as we make requests. And when it becomes idle, it shuts down. There is the hook. And as soon as we make a request again, the app starts. Just notice they're not always requests because sometimes they're cached, but yeah, as long as we make requests, the app continues to run. This is all cached. Okay, wait. Yeah. And as soon as it becomes idle, as soon as there are no requests anymore, after a certain amount of time, the seconds you specified, the app will shut down again. And you can use that new hook, the Svelte shutdown event, to listen for when all requests have finished. When it's idle, you can check for the reason, and then close your database connection, close all your resources, and then properly shut down your application. And that's it. And it works. It works with everything, almost everything that has a command to start. So as long as you can put in a command here to start your app, it could be a command to start Docker container. It could be anything. As long as there is one, you can take advantage of this. Usually for very long running processes, if you have maybe WebSockets or maybe server-side events, like a connection that's continuously open for an hour or I don't know, something like that, then this obviously doesn't make sense. But for most apps, this is probably a good solution. It's a good default. And yeah, that's one of the three major features that were added to adapt to Note version 5. You may have to make sure that you use the latest version because there was one bug that we had to fix. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very cool. And it's also like help you save on something that was interior, like not interior, actually, like that's already cheaper than serverless. And this will actually make you save even more because most VPS actually like you are paying for the amount of CPU and memory and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
so, I mean,
and
if you, for
today,
example,
like this is like it's even less than the cold start from a serverless, I would guess.
right, yeah. So it's just, it depends. So if you like Svelte itself, as you could see, it's just 100 milliseconds to start it up. It depends on if you add a Postgres database. I guess connecting to it will take a few more milliseconds. I
Yeah,
tried this with better with the SQLite. That's barely noticeable. But yeah, it's really fast.
but I mean, I think like if you reason like if I compare this to a cold start from a serverless environment, I think they literally need to spin up the whole like I mean like it's Node. No, Node is not running here, right? It literally shut
Yeah.
down. Yeah, okay.
And by the
Yeah,
way, for Svelte, I think they just announced this week that they now always have one serverless, like one function instance warmed up to reduce, the cold starts,
yeah, that's
because
interesting.
it's just, yeah.
That's interesting, but this, I mean, I guess that in the end, that will like be like paid by the users probably. Like at the end of the day, like they will probably in the maybe not now, but in the future they will probably like put that cost on the users probably.
But this is actually, it's not a new feature. So it's been around for like maybe almost 10 years. And other companies, they have already taken advantage of it. So I think there's a, Drupal, the CMS, they there's a shared hoster who there's an article of this somewhere. They have they have multiple users, multiple Drupal instances on one server, and they take advantage of this so that when the CMS is used by one of these users of the same server, only then it starts actually. So they use this to reduce the resources, use the usage of the resources, because you're not always logging into your dashboard. You don't
Yeah,
need to
obviously.
keep running like these apps the whole time if they're not used.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very cool, and very cool that you implemented actually like the hook to actually, I mean, to put the best use of this because I guess how would this work without the graceful shutdown? Like probably like it will be more
Yeah,
resource.
it wasn't possible without it. Yeah, so that's why they all tied together. And we had to wait for Node.js 18. Someone opened this issue before Node.js 18 was required by Svelte. Yeah, so it's been open for a while, the issue.
Yeah,
Yeah, now it's possible or easier to do.
yeah, very, very cool. Thank you, Karim. And let's move to another question that we like. We have another couple of topics for today. So one is a very quick question that come up on Discord. And by the way, join our Discord because there's a lot of interesting discussion going on. You can go to svelte.dev/chat to join our Discord. And one of the questions that we got was, and this is something that it's actually, in my opinion, quite usual to know, like to request. Um, I have this very simple example here, but as you can see, like I'm using two logos, and those are literally the same logos. Like it's the same as SVGs copied, and one I am actually using this /logo SVG, and I'm loading the logo from the static folder, and in the other I'm actually importing the logo from $lib/logo SVG. Now, as you can see, the result is basically the same. Actually, I think if I inspect the HTML, it will be a bit different because one should be no, okay, it's not even in line. And the question was when to use one and when to use the other. And my answer to this, at least my answer, I don't know if Karim will agree with me, but my answer is generally whenever you have to deal with images and like files that you can import, you should probably import them. Because basically when you do this image goes through Vite pipeline. This means that you can add plugins that will make the image lighter, for example. You can add plugins that create different version of the same image. You also get another thing for free, which is whenever Vite build your application, it will append the hash to like this. So let's say if we do npm run build, this will actually build the application. So it was not running through the dev server. It will build the application. And if we do npm run preview now, we should see the same application, but this is actually built in production. And I want to show you the difference between the two. So as you can see, like here, for example, we have this ./logo SVG, which is like a separate API request to load the logo and stuff like that. For example, in this case, the image is small enough that Vite actually, I don't know if you can see it because it's very, very small, but basically, let me see. So I want to copy the outer HTML of this div to really show you what Vite made, basically. So this is new file, test.html. So this is what Vite produced, basically. As you can see, if I close this, one image basically just has /logo SVG. The other image, the source, is actually data image SVG plus HTML. It was inlined into this data attribute, which is one of the way Vite transform your application. And this is actually better because this does not require an extra HTTP request, so it's better. There is also the Svelte announcer, but that's just for assertive technologies. So that's why, in my opinion, you should always use Vite, because Vite will try to make the best of your image, and also, again, as you see, like you can also add plugins to these to make it even better. For example, you could make sure you can create a Vite plugin that convert your SVG into a Svelte component and stuff like that. You can use also, if you do this, you can also use enhance image from the Svelte Kit team, which is good. So personally, my opinion, try to always, whenever possible, try to use the import feature from Vite. I don't know, Karim, what do you think about it?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I usually don't use SVG files, so I didn't know that this actually does it automatically embed the SVG into the HTML without any plugins.
Yeah, I think. I mean, in this case, we are actually saying like emg.source, so that's probably why it did it.
Oh
It
yeah, you're right.
automatically the
Yeah.
SVG. I think you
Okay.
can instruct Vite to basically do like you can basically you should be able to do like, for example, row. If you do this, it
Oh
will
yeah.
literally import the SVG, so you can do at HTML logo and be done with it. Like it will literally put the
Yeah.
SVG inside your HTML, which is even another possibility. But yeah, like in general, I think the important bit of importing it from the application is that then is inside the Vite pipeline, so you can modify it during the import and do cool stuff with it.
I wonder why we don't do this for faith icons. Like, I'm not sure if it works for faith icons. To be honest, it should probably, but I mean, we don't change them so often. But if you have two SvelteKit applications, you develop two SvelteKit applications, and you test them on the same port, you're running on localhost 3000, for example, but they actually have different faith icons, you will always see the same faith icon because it's cached. But with read, that would probably be correct. You would see
Yeah,
the correct
probably.
icon.
I mean, I think favicon is also like, for example, Safari has a lot of problem with favicons, so
Oh yeah,
you should always add
yeah.
a fallback to an .ico, literally a .ico, because otherwise it can create problem. I also think that probably like the only way to add it through Svelte would be to use Svelte head,
Yes, yeah. So
and
you need
I don't
layers or something.
know
Yeah.
how the favicon uh, work with hydration. Like I don't know if it's actually like will respect hydration. So if I dynamically change the five icon
Oh,
during
well,
with JavaScript, will it change? I think yes, actually, but I don't know. But that's an interesting bit, and maybe it's actually something that you can actually do, and probably like most people just use the default favicon because there
yeah.
is the app here that can actually
Mm.
yeah favicon.png. Oh, that's also probably one of the
Oh,
of problems. I think
oh yeah.
this gets converted to the full name of the website. Probably you cannot use relative path with favicon. I can't remember, but it's fine. Yeah, it's very yeah.
Okay.
That was a very quick one. So now we have a discussion, and it's a kind of a spicy one. So I will remove the screen so you can see our faces. And this discussion that we want first, let's see if there are any questions about this. Yeah, for example, Captain Conan say, I think static is best for things like robots txt, as long as there's no dynamic bits to it. That's also very true. Like, for example,
Yeah.
whenever you want something that because in theory you can create a dynamic robot txt or a dynamic sitemap, for example, using a SvelteKit endpoint. But that's pretty annoying to do because you have to create the plus page.server, you have to name the folder as the with the robots.txt, you have to return an actual response, while you can just throw a file in the static folder and be done with it if it's really static. And yeah, by the way, yeah, URL URL to make it an external request. Like in Vite, you can also do logo.svg question mark URL, and that will return the URL of the SVG. Yeah, so very interesting. And there's also another question, like, for this discussion, are you specifically talking about small SVGs images only, or any image? Personally, I think it's any image. Like whenever you can have an image inside your build pipeline, it's better to use Vite. And you can also use plugins like Vite. How was the name? I think there is Vite.
Which image tools? With image tools, I
Vite
think.
image tools, yes.
But the image tools is used by, I think, the Svelte enhanced image already, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
exactly. Yeah. But
Yeah.
for example, Vite image tools will take your image and generate various sizes for it, so that based on the viewport, you can actually show a different size, like, because let's say that you have a very huge hero image. Uh, Load that image on a low-end device with a small screen is very wasteful, and so you should create different version of the same image with different sizes. But Vite Image Tools actually does that for you, but only if that image goes through Vite. So that's why you probably want something like that. And there's another interesting question that is, what is Svelte? Welcome. First thing first, Svelte is a framework for building UIs, and SvelteKit is meta framework. And as Captain Codeman said, is the antidote to React. Yeah, it's basically another library to build a user interface, and it's very cool. You should try. So let's now go to the other discussion, and feel free to join in the chat. If you want to come on stage, I'll send you the link to StreamYard. And also, sorry, there is another question from B1 Mind. It's not exactly that handles cache headers, but basically, given that it will append to the URL the hash of the file. If the file is the same, the URL will stay the same. If the file changes, the URL will change slightly with a query parameter. And this means that you can basically cache it forever, because every time the file actually changes, so you don't want it to be cached anymore, the URL will actually change. That's also another important bit. So let's go to the other discussion, to the spicy discussion. And the discussion is about open source. There was a discussion recently. I think it was started by Patak, which is one of the member of it's probably the core maintainer of Vite at this point.
He's part of the core team.
It's part of the core team, but I think he's also one that is working most.
Yeah, by the way, he was on the last Svelte radio podcast from, I think it was released a week ago, where he talks a bit about this, about Vite in more depth, but not about what we're going to talk about now.
Yeah, and the discussion is about like the how to ask for and providing support in open source community. And I think like he was specifically talking about like the Vite Discord basically, and we kind of have the same problem in the Svelte Discord, but I think this generally applies to the broader community, like GitHub issues and GitHub discussions, because those are also places where you want to ask for support, or you want to like signal a bug and stuff like that. And it was like Patak was kind of annoyed maybe by the fact that like for example people tend
Maybe
to
we can
like,
show the
yeah, we can actually show
the
the
tweet. It doesn't actually load for me right now, but maybe it loads for you.
I can share my screen.
But he's probably right. He's probably not the only one with this opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think like this is the I don't know. This is, I think it's a Mastodon, but basically Discord communities do wonders to create hacking spaces to share ideas and work together. But I see them break badly when used as a help forum. No friction for question without context, posting an error message, no minimal repros. Maybe we should move to GitHub discussion only. And that's kind of true, like the sense that obviously respect of GitHub issue, for example, there's much less control, much less like it feels like a chat with a friend. So very often, like people ask for support in Discord, and this means that very often it's very difficult to help people because they don't have the correct framework to ask a question. You can say like they just passed, okay, I have this error message, and how can I do like. And this, I think, again, also applies to a certain type of GitHub issue, because there is also like it can happen in GitHub issue anyway. So people post an issue without a minimal reproduction, without the minimal like, like without actually helping people to help them. That's the point.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and I think personally, I think that, for example, the minimal reproduction should be basically a guarantee if you want to have like to be helped, because without a minimal reproduction, you basically cannot really be sure that the issue is with Svelte. So that's the problem. Svelte or Vite, obviously, or whatever tools you are asking support for.
And it
For
has to
example,
be minimal, so it cannot be
and
like a
exactly,
copy of like your project. It has to be like really stripped down to the core problem.
exactly, that's another issue, because sometimes, for example, I see, yeah, that's the minimal reproduction and it's the whole repo, and it's fine. Like I myself, I spend some time, like even a couple of hours, looking at a repo, picking up pieces just to find an issue. uh, but I think the problem is that the larger is a project, the more are the cog that needs to work together perfectly in sync. So if there is one cog that is blocked for some reason, it will block all the chain below. So the problem is that if you then think, okay, this is probably a Svelte problem, and in reality it's up there, the problem, you will not know. Maintainers will not be able to verify that, because if they don't have a reproduction, they literally cannot know what other cogs you have in your project. And if you just throw at them all the cogs, they will have to search cog by cog and see if one of them is blocked. So
Very, very often, if people that start to create a minimal reproduction repo, so they take their project and remove anything, like everything that's not relevant or they believe is not relevant to the problem, they will very often find the problem, like
yeah,
while removing
exactly.
the things.
Exactly. That's the, for example, it happened to me a lot of time. Like in the process of strip down something,
Yeah.
I actually found an issue either in my code or in some other library. And so the more the example is minimal, the better. So and that's also something to notify. Like people too often have XY problem question. This is another problem, especially in Discord questions, because uh, sometimes people like think they know why something is happening, and so instead of asking, hey, I have this problem, they say, hey, how do I fix this thing? How can I change this thing? And that's obviously problematic, because like I can provide you with the answer to Y, but maybe it's not a fix to X. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or sometimes they leave too much context, right? Like they don't really tell you what they intend to do. They just think what they do has to work and is correct.
yeah,
Maybe can you scroll a bit down? I think you wrote a few other things specifically about Discord.
that's
Yeah,
also something
discoverability.
very very interesting. Like because Discord is actually uh, behind a login and it's not indexed. That's also another big issue with Discord help forums. Like there's some project that is trying to do so, but I think it's against it's against Discord TOS.
Yeah.
And in general, like it's not really indexable, and this means that also a lot of time the same questions get asked, because it's very difficult to find the answer on Discord itself. It's very difficult to find the answer on Google, because if the answer is answered on Discord, Google has no clue about that. So
Discord searches are just bad. It's really difficult to find.
yeah,
I usually
unfortunately,
try to share like um answers to previous questions, like the same answer I've given a few days, a couple of weeks ago, but it's difficult to find it because the searches are great.
yeah, yeah. And there's
Oh, by
also
the way, Uh, yeah, just to mention, it's interesting. Yeah, so Vercel, they announced
Yeah,
that
exactly.
they
I was
closed
about
this up.
to,
Yeah, this cup
bring it up.
discussions. I think they posted this a couple days ago.
Yeah,
Um, because to be honest, GitHub discussions is not the idea is good, but the execution is not good. There is some missing features, and yeah, it's not good.
I mean, I think there's also a thing about like people get used, like people are not yet used to GitHub discussion. I mean, I for one, like I tend to almost never visit the discussion page on GitHub. Like
Yeah,
I try,
it
I
doesn't
do
even
it
show up
to,
on Google. Like if you Google for something, you never get to GitHub discussions.
yeah, exactly. That's also another. So yeah, what Vercel is
Mm.
doing is they are closing GitHub discussion and they are building their own Vercel community. So this hopefully will be indexed. It will be like with a better search, and hopefully you can see the questions even without logging in. And hopefully you can actually log in with GitHub. So it will actually just be very a very quick replacement for GitHub discussion. And who knows, maybe it's actually like could actually be the next big thing to make this work.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. I think this will be other communities will probably watching. They will probably watch what Viscera does and how it works out for them because they're not the only ones thinking about maybe hosting a forum, maybe like changing a few things. Yeah, but we see.
Yep. Okay, that was also the discussion. I will hide my screen to show. And again, I don't know um, if any of you want to speak about something. Let's see if there were some comment. Well, first thing first, there's a quick answer. When Svelte 5 release, will you make a new tutorial? I think yes. Like
Yeah.
the official tutorial will definitely be updated with Svelte 5. Um, yeah, I mean, this is also like kind of a spicy take. Like, in my opinion, the only expectation with open source is that you get the security of having access to the source. You have no right to support fixes or anything else. Uh, it's true. I mean, I also think it depends on the license. I don't think anyone is doing real open source by also tying himself to support people. So, if,
Yeah, I mean, it is. I would say it is true, but at the same time, an open source project lives from the community, like from the community and
exactly,
support. We would like the Svelte community probably would not have, or would not, would probably be a bit smaller if there was like no support or not as much support. But
I
people
agree.
should probably not come into the Discord, into the community with the expectation that I have, like that everybody has to answer the questions within 5 minutes or something.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I was about to say. Like, I think that's also kind of the beauty of open source. Like, no one is committed, but a lot of people are actually like willing to put work hours outside work hours just to
Yeah.
help other people. And I think it's the beauty. Obviously, there's also the thing like you shouldn't open an issue saying you need to fix these or else, because obviously that will not come. Like it's a it's a reciprocative thing. Like people work for free to give you a library to simplify your code to do something like that, and you should also approach them with the correct respect, in my opinion. um yeah, it doesn't today. The issue was with my project, but it was a serious Delta 5 bug. So Ollie actually had the opposite. So I thought the issue was with my project, but it turns out it was a serious Delta 5 bug, which is good. Like, it's fine.
Mm.
I think discovering bug is also how you can contribute to to Svelte, but in general to open source. Like, if it's not a problem opening issues, actually, it's the opposite. Like, if you can just open issues, it's still contributing to open source. And in fact, that's very interesting because GitHub also counts opening issues as a contribution. So if you open an issue, you will have a green a green thing in GitHub for that day, because it's actually a contribution, regardless of the fact that you actually solved the problem or not. Yeah, it's also, if the same question come up a lot, it's an incentive for people to write a blog post or make a video about it. I think the problem with this is just that there are too few people that write blogs and and do video in respect of the amount of people that does question.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also very interesting. Yep. So that was also the discussion. I hope it wasn't too spicy, but I mean, we love spiciness anyway. And thank you everybody for joining today, this week in Svelte. Thank you, Karim, to join and to show this wonderful piece of new thing that we can do with Svelte with adapter node. And I'll see you guys next Friday. Bye.
See you.